Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this webinar with the focus on retail formats. My name is Ulf Johansson, and I am the director of the Center for Retail Research. With me today, I also have a guest, and why she's on we'll know soon. But Zarah, do you want to say a few words about yourself as we start?
Yeah, I can do that. Hi, nice to see so many people attending. My name is Zarah Rosell, and I work at IKEA here in Sweden for the Swedish Retail Organization. And we'll talk a little bit about our development with our smaller formats the last couple of years.
Thank you very much, Zarah. We'll leave the word to you eventually here. I'm just going to share a presentation here. We at the Center for Retail Research, we have some sponsors: Hakon, Lund University, Handelsrådet. The six of us is in the management team, but we are a center that works with affiliated researchers around Lund University. So there are around 50 of them that are in different ways associated to the center. We produce research of different kinds. We've had different focuses through the years. The last year's focus has been a lot on the future of consumption, with the book coming out from Springer Publishers last year, when we also celebrated 10 years. But we published a lot of things that are aimed at practitioners. And we do a lot of seminars like this. I am always proud of the fact that we arranged our first seminar on AI almost 6 years ago. So it's a theme. We've become pretty good at picking up interesting themes through the years. And we have a yearly report that's available on our webpage. If there's anybody that's interested in that, we sum up the things we've done through the years, and we are now in our 11th year of existence. So, new store formats. We did a seminar on this 2 years ago, also then with some people from Ingka. And now 2 years later, we can come back and actually talk about some results from the project we talked about 2 years ago. So that's always nice to be able to do that. So I will present some of the preliminary findings in this research project that's been going on for a while now. I'll come back to that because it's a project that started just before COVID hit us. And Ingka and IKEA and the new formats they have launched is a centerpiece in this research. And that's also the reason why Zarah is with us, because she's going to give the more inside perspective on this after a while. And then if there are questions and comments, we have plenty of time for that after Zarah have talked for a while. So this project that I'm going to talk about now, it started. We had already, me and Jens Hultman, who was prior, he also worked at the Center for Retail Research. He's now at the University of Kristianstad. But we had talked about, what about new formats, new store formats, what's happening on the store format front. And then we happened to have a conversation with a business development manager at one of Sweden's largest retailers. And that was quite interesting, because he said a lot of things that we felt was a good indication to get some research done. it's a long citation, but it is along the lines that many of the new formats that were launched. This is 2019, 2020. Are new formats in the sense that it's not smaller or bigger than the original format that the retailer does. There are some tweaks to the format, which makes that they are not entirely sales-based, the new formats. They, of course, relate to customer journey, they relate to omni-channel strategy, etc. And that's all fine. That's a natural development when it comes to format, of course. But the key thing that he stresses, and the thing that we hadn't caught until we met this guy, was the fact that this makes it very difficult for retailers to use the old ways of evaluating stores and how stores do. Normally, you would take the sales of a store and compare it to other stores, etc., per employee, per square meter, or whatever. They don't work fully at the new formats that we could see at this point in time, and that is what this guy is telling us. And we picked up something interesting, we thought, there, and actually run with that. And we had 10 different retailers lined up in this research project. We got money for the research project from Handelsrådet, early 2020, started, and we had contact, like I said, with 10 different retailers, both in the UK and also in Sweden, who were testing different forms of new formats. But COVID hit. So pre-COVID, many retailers worked with this. When COVID hit, as you may remember, physical stores and people meeting in physical stores was not the best idea of the day. It was more online, distance ourselves, etc. So all but one retailer closed down their experiments. And one remained. The good thing for us with that one was that we had already good contacts with that retailer. And they didn't slow down their efforts. They kind of accelerated them also under COVID and after COVID. So what was supposed to be a 10 company study became basically a 1 company study for us. So we ended up looking at 2 of the new formats that IKEA has conceptualized, and where Ingka is the other organization that we followed. Most of you probably know that IKEA is the concept owner, who owns the brand name IKEA and licenses it out to the franchisees. And one of the franchisees is Ingka, and Ingka is by far the largest franchisee of the IKEA brand. So we focused this study on what is called the plan and order point, planeringsstudio, or in Swedish, as you can see on the right here. And then also on the city store. It's had many names. I don't know which one is the correct one. I call it city store, and sometimes I call it XS. That's also how it was explained to us, that the internal name was XS. And this is a very, if you look from an overall point of view, how retailers meet their customers is not a new issue in retail. It's been discussed since we started talking about retail. How should we, in the old days, mostly with the physical stores, but now also online, how should we meet our customers? So it's ever present and always relevant. And as we see a new world coming up with the customer journey, the omni-channel emphasis that many have, then it becomes more important also how you meet people physically. It's been quite clear in many cases that yes, online is good, and online is good for customer journey and omnichannel, but the physical aspect is still there, not least for companies like Ingka and IKEA, where you buy things to put in your home. There is a testing of the things that is necessary before you actually know if this is something you want or not. And I don't think this is very controversial to say, but we've found that retail is often stuck in the traditional sales machinery, developing store formats that mostly are bigger or smaller than the original format. ICA is Maxi in Sweden compared to the Nära concept, which is the close by where you live convenience store. That's the traditional format development that we see that retailers do, larger or smaller than the original store format. We are looking at something different here. That is not what we are looking at, the bigger, smaller one. We are looking at something that we saw as completely new. So our interest lies with formats that not solely focus on that specific unit, but also involve the customer journey and omnichannel strategies. So the research question we had in this project, put simply, is how can those new formats be evaluated in a new and more comprehensive way? And what do customers think of these new store formats? So we have done a lot of data collection. We have done a lot of data collection internally in Ingka and IKEA. We've also studied, and when it comes to Ingka and IKEA, we've mostly done studies in Sweden and in the UK, but in some cases we have looked at other franchisees also and how they work with the new store formats. We've talked to customers, I was almost saying all over the world, but we have absolutely not done that. But we've done it in Sweden and we've done it in the UK. And we haven't really dug into that because we have some interesting things we can do with comparing British customers to Swedish customers when it comes to these new formats. So like I said, data on customers, data on retail managers and how they see these new formats and also how they are going to be evaluated. It's a fairly big project team behind this. We have some foreign colleagues like Steve Burt here. We have Jens Hultman, like I mentioned before. We have some of us, Karis, Sofia. We also have students. We managed to interest students for this team, so they have helped us with some of the data collection. And we've also in Sweden used Castitude, which is a data collection company, and Anglefish in the UK. And we've already published some things from this project. This is more towards the scientific community, as you may understand. So the pros and cons of new store formats, and now we are looking at what we actually got from both IKEA and Ingka. The pros of these things is become modern. If you talk to people internally, that's something that often comes up. And it's also a reminder of the IKEA brand. You can go online and find things about the IKEA brand. Otherwise, you have to go to the outskirts of cities to even see the IKEA brand, with the IKEA brand being more present in center of cities through these new formats. That's a reminder of the IKEA brand for people. And also, of course, it relates to the customer journey. New physical meeting places are needed. And that, of course, relates to accessibility and reaching new customer groups. It's cheaper to establish, and it also relates to the online channel as a complement. Just saying on cheaper to establish, that is of course relative. The Stockholm one in Gallerian, I think it's 8,000 square meters. If you compare that to 30,000-40,000 square meters for a big store, of course it's going to be cheaper. But on the other hand, it's often in more expensive locations in the center of cities. So it's relative. So cons, and when you talk to people, and remember, we've done this for since beginning of 2020, so it's 4.5 years. We talked to people in the Ingka and into IKEA organization. So there are some people that weren't very positive towards these launches. And one of the big reasons for that was the fear that it created customer confusion. And that customer confusion had to do with, are we making people confused about what is the IKEA brand? What does it stand for? If you go to a city store, you maybe find 5 sofas. If you go to the big store, there are 50 of them. If they go to the small store only, they think IKEA only have 5 sofas. So what's happening with the brand image as we open something that is new and in many dimensions different? Some people argue that they do not generate new sales. They rather cannibalize on other existing formats, meaning that if we took that one away, people would go to the big store instead or go online instead. Like I said before, it's relative how much a location costs, because that also came up as cons. If you want to be in Gallerian in Stockholm, it's pretty expensive real estate compared to somewhere out in the outskirts, of course. And it's difficult to find the right location. We've had many examples of this, and in the IKEA world, there's lots of thoughts about what is the right location for a planning studio, for a city store. For a number of years in London on Tottenham Court Road, there was a planning studio. What that closed down a couple of years ago. And one of the reasons it closed down was that it was in a prime shopping location in London. Tottenham Court Road is a big shopping street leading down to Covent Garden, from Oxford Street to Covent Garden. And they got tired of the fact that people got in there and were disappointed that you couldn't buy IKEA stuff there. You could only plan your kitchen or your living room or your bedroom there. So difficult to find the right location. Should it be in the city center shopping streets or should it be somewhere else? And it often also come up. How are we going to evaluate these? These don't just generate sales, they generate something different that is too complex for us to deal with when it comes to evaluations. Ways of evaluating new store formats. The traditional model is the cash and carry model, where it's an expression used for retail formats where customers come with their cash, they buy the stuff and they carry it home with them. That's usually the model, and that's quite easy to evaluate. And even with the new formats, of course, in the end, sales is obviously the target. But it's quite easy to see also, and that I would also say to a large proportion, it's also accepted inside these organizations that there is a need to evaluate things in a broader sense, which includes customer experience, what effect does it have on the brand, what effect does it have on the market. But anyway, the bottom line is the sales, and that's often what rules, so to speak, here. realizing for a larger scope than single units. I'll come back to that, and that relates to the omni-channel. That is also present in the discussions we have. People recognize there's a need to move from the single unit to areas, geographical areas. I'll come back to that. And what we've concluded from this, and you should also know that there is very little help to get when it comes to this. There's no other retailers that does this in a good way, so you can just take how they evaluate these things. Not that we know of, at least. And on the theory front, on the academic front, there's not much to guide us either. But we have concluded that there are at least 3 things that you need in an evaluation of these type of formats. You need to have evaluations that makes it possible to look at individual transactions and experience. These new formats is, like I said before, they are not just for transaction, ordering a kitchen, buying something at the city store. They are also for creating experience. So that, of course, needs to be part of the evaluation. Evaluation also needs to look at individual interactions. Of course, how was that interaction? What happened in that interaction? But also focusing on customer journeys, which takes place over time. So it's a necessity to follow things over time. And thirdly, we've talked about this before. We talk about this as omni-channel or multi-channel. There is a need to get a broader picture of the different units that are involved in somebody buying something, and see what is the role when it comes to that of the new store formats. So there are three of these, and we made a very, very complicated 3-dimensional model of this. There's 2 examples here put out, but you see the axis here: functional experience, multi-channel, one touch point, present now, but over several customer journeys, and if you add several customer journeys together, you often get what you call a consumption journey. And then you can, as we've done here with the examples, you can show what you could use as an evaluation at different points here. And of course, to make this work, there is a need also to focus even broader inside the organization. And then we talk about the balanced scorecard. And there is, for those of you who remember your late 80s and early 90s, Kaplan and Norton's famous study of the balanced scorecard, where they said that most organizations are one-dimensional when they evaluate their business. They look only at financial targets, which is one side of evaluation, but there are several others, and they put up 3 more. Of course, the customer views, the customer satisfaction, but also company-specific processes and innovation. So it becomes a dashboard of things to keep track of, to understand if the business is doing well, not just the finance, but the others. And that is also something that needs to complement a broader evaluation of new formats in general. For instance, internal processes. One of the things we have seen and heard from customers when it comes to the new formats is that they really like the fact that it's easier to get hold of personnel when they go to a small store, and of course when they book time at the plan and order point. And an internal process to support that would of course be training of frontline staff. So one way to evaluate whether you're actually gonna score high on those evaluations is that you make sure that your frontline personnel has got top up when it comes to different type of educational things, so they can meet customers in a good way. And innovation, you can think of a lot of things here. How much renewal have our stores undergone in the last year? I mean, how does the stores meet the customers? For instance, how does the city store meet the customer? Is it new? Has something happened to it? Has something been innovated? One innovation factor is the sustainable part. How much of the stuff that is sold is now sustainable? Remember, this is only examples. It's not what to focus on. It's just examples of showing what you could focus on inside when it comes to innovation. And we talk a lot about AI. That is, of course, also something that you could think about, how that is implemented in the processes that are used to help customers find the ultimate solution for them. And I was going to say it's a lot of talk both in IKEA, but especially in Ingka when we did this study about evaluating not individual units, but more evaluating larger geographical areas. And the country that was always mentioned when we talked about this was Russia. So I had several meetings and did several interviews with people, senior managers in Ingka, Russia, because they were very much at the forefront of looking at bigger regions, like, for instance, the Moscow region, but they were also moving to do the same things for St. Petersburg. And they launched new formats, the ones we are looking at, Plan and Order Point, City Store. And in Moscow, they had 4 big IKEA stores. And they were experimenting with different ways how to evaluate how the new formats, the Plan and Order Point and City Store, worked in connection with the big formats and online. And one of the big things in Russia and in Moscow was especially to see if these new formats could generate new IKEA customers. And it turned out that they reached very many new Russian customers in the Moscow region. They were not cannibalizing, they were really creating and finding new customers. Yeah, it added new customer groups, like I said. And it's also turned out that, according to them, these are people who never have thought about IKEA in this vast region that Moscow is, where 4 major stores was kind of a drop in the ocean. And so they experimented with evaluating not the individual stores, but the whole region of Moscow, and trying to find out the dynamics, the omnichannel dynamics and the customer journey, and how these new formats were involved. As we know, Russia is no longer part of the Ingka or IKEA world. I know there's been the same type of talk for a lot of other big metropolitan areas in where Ingka is. London is, for instance, one of those where there's been a lot of talk about doing something similar to this. So, what do customers think? We find some different views among customers. We also saw we had the opportunity to look at some of the IKEA data from the launch of the IKEA Hammersmith in the west of London, and then we did our own study of IKEA Hammersmith in London a year after it was launched, and it was pretty clear that it was very chaotic, the first experience customers got of this new format. But as people gotten used to that, it was not the big store. It was 2,000 products. Some of them you can carry home. Some of them are more difficult to carry home, but most could you do that. And the other 7,000 of the products you could order. Once people understood that this is IKEA, but it's not the same format as the big one. We find a lot of people that feel that this is very much a good thing. And many people are very happy about IKEA coming to them. In this part of London, even though the Wembley store isn't that far away, it's too far away anyway to go there. For many of the people that we talked to in Hammersmith, it was a question of going on public transport, and how the hell do you transport things home on public transport? Comfortable and manageable. This is something that surprised us a little bit, that people thought that the big stores were very stressful and inaccessible. Macy's, etc., where the new stores is close to where people lived. So, yeah. And they also talked a lot about the high service level. I'm not sure this is the case for the new formats, but customers felt that there were more staff, and the staff was in general more knowledgeable than at the big stores. And the association to food often comes up as something very positive for customers, because IKEA become for many of the people here almost like a cafe, a meeting place, where you also can shop. But we also heard the other ones that feel that this is something too different. When I want to buy something from IKEA, I go to the big thing because they have everything there. It's big, it's everything. This is too small for me to be inspired. Many customers talked about the small IKEA as cozy, which is probably not something that we would use for the other big stores. And we saw in that study, because we deliberately asked for what people had done before they came to the store and what they also planned to do afterwards. And it was very clear. Some bought things, many were there to just have the experience, plan, etc. So the link to the customer journey of the new format is very, very clear. And it's also very clear that it's part of an omni-channel thing, where this is one way that IKEA meets customers. And we found, looking specifically at the brand issues, that for the customer, this is, for most customers, I should say, this is not confusing. They find that this is IKEA also, and IKEA is doing something a little bit different here, but it's still IKEA. Good prices, interesting furniture, quite innovative, etc. Whatever the usual things that you associate with IKEA. So, summing up, new store formats, complex as it should be, because it is not the usual thing. But in my mind, it's definitely something that is necessary for many retailers to work with. And of course, as always, when you change things, there is a need for endurance. There is a need for not just evaluating after a month or 2 months or 6 months. There is a need to let it run its course, let people get used to this. And of course, to do that, you need resources. Yeah, and it's an extended development program process. These concepts that we have looked at in IKEA terms, they are formal, they are conceptualized. But they are still, I mean, they are still being developed. there is a need to kind of complement the traditional way of evaluating stores. Otherwise, these formats will not survive, because on sales they probably don't deliver as well as they should for the square meters they have. So it's not straightforward. There are lots of other things that need to be involved here. Cannibalization, we find evidence, yes. We also say in the case of Russia that I talked about, it's absolutely no to that one. Yeah. And if you think the things that I have presented when it comes to how to evaluate these things is complex, yes, I agree. There's a lot of complex elements in this type of evaluation that involves customer journey, involves omni-channel, etc. But on the other hand, we've never been better equipped when it comes to tools that can help us do that. AI, data mining, etc. should make it easy to do these things. We often talk about all the data we have, and we don't know how to use it really well. Now we have tools to help us do that. Overall, we would say that we have found positive customers. Confusion at first, but positive customers that appreciate the merits of the new format. But we also find customers that are in love with the old format, so to speak. And the brand impact is more on modernization. People find basically the same positive associations here to the IKEA brand that they find in other formats. Okay, that was me, and I'm closing down my presentation there and giving the word to Zarah, who has the difficult task of telling me how wrong I was, or I don't know.
No,
The floor is yours.
thank you. And hi again, Zarah here. For those of you who joined the meeting a little bit later, I work at IKEA in Sweden for the Swedish retail organization, and we'll talk a little bit about the smaller formats we have developed the last years. And I will share my screen here now, so hopefully you will see the presentation. Oj då. Do you see my screen now?
Yes.
And then I should
just put it
on
in
the
presentation mode, and that's fine.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, so I will talk about our development with smaller formats. We have had different, and we have worked with this development the last couple of years. And just a short agenda. I will first talk about our home service points, which is standing for the HSP here, and a little bit about the learnings we had from those. And also our later conceptualization of the smaller formats, the things that happened after the home service points, which was a test, and then we conceptualized them. And a little bit about the future and what we think about the future and what we are focusing on and developing. So hopefully this will be enjoyable and also give you some learnings. So this is IKEA Retail Sweden. We have 21 stores going from Malmö up to Haparanda. We had one new store opening last year in IKEA Kållered. The old one was located very close, and then we built a new one to maintain it in a good way. We are focusing a lot on our food offer and making it more sustainable. We are focusing a lot on making our deliveries more fossil-free. So just a short snapshot of our focus areas. We are present in many markets with stores, but then we also have smaller meeting points. And we are 9,000 co-workers in Sweden today. And when it comes to our physical, mainly units, as I said, we have our stores. Up here we have Haparanda, and down here we have Malmö. And one of them is the city store in Stockholm, which Ulf mentioned earlier. It's the small store, extra small store. And we have 12 plan and order points, which are more focusing on planning and ordering and supporting customers in that. We have 2 distribution centers, fulfillment centers. And we also have 1 parcel unit. We have 2 customer support centers, which is helping customer who reach out from the online and wants to buy, for example, their kitchen through phone or email, etc. We also focus on our webpage and our app. And we have 1 unit service office, which I am sitting on, who is supporting all the units in Sweden. So going back some years, this was our earlier CMP menu. If we go back to, for example, 2020 or 2021, this is what we had then. And we saw that we needed to develop smaller formats, that is where we actually are able to sell products. We had the pop-up format before, but that is a marketing activity, so not just really focusing on selling products to customers. So therefore we wanted to develop this home service point and test that a smaller format for a shorter period. And then we of course had our IKEA stores, and also later have developed other formats. We also then actually had the plan and order point, but only for a larger size. And then we also had IKEA pickup points, not in Sweden that are IKEA branded, but in other countries. And why did we want to roll out the home service point if we go back to 2020, 2021? We wanted to test and learn. We had our stores, but needed to come closer with smaller units, because we wanted to get to know customer behavior better, where we had high potential. We also wanted to test the market value and how we could meet customers in a new way, drive IKEA top of mind, and also sales with speed. And we wanted to do this in a simple way, where we actually were able to go out with speed, and everything maybe didn't need to be perfect from the beginning, because we also see that it is a learning process when we do new things. The markets in our country were the ones leading the process, with the country organization as a supporting partner. So they really needed to take care of the expansion of the smaller units, even if we were supporting with the larger processes and so on. So the units and the markets out in Sweden also needed to, for example, develop new competences, and also have co-workers working in other cities than where the store were located. And our first wave of opening, when it comes to this home service point, were done in, for example, Stockholm, in Sickla. We also had Norrköping. We had 2 in Gothenburg, one in Växjö, Lund, 2 in Gothenburg, and 1 in Sälen. And this was also continued later on with when we had conceptualized the plan and order point, which I will talk about a little bit later. And then we have also opened in Luleå, Skellefteå, and 1 in Täby. But those ones, together with the earlier home service points here, are called plan and order point now. And they are planning studios where you can plan and order your kitchen, wardrobe, bathroom, etc. So these ones were the first wave in 2001 with a lot of speed and flexibility and agility, when we saw that we really needed to come closer to the customers in a fast way to complement our stores. And this is how the home service point looked at the first sight, showing the affordability agenda we have and really emphasizing that, but also, of course, setting the brand in a good position. It should also be a low-cost format, since we wanted to do this with speed, but also because of that we wanted to test it. So what was an IKEA home service point? It's a way to offer our consumers assistance when they want to plan and order complex range, also complementing the online offer that we have. It was a low-cost plug-in solution that was developed from the pop-up solution that we have, which was, as I said before, a marketing activity. So this was actually a way of testing it as a format and selling products, and not only having it as a marketing activity. Our goals here was to connect to more people in Sweden, but also in other IKEA countries who did it, who had a limited possibility to access an IKEA store. We wanted to increase our market presence by that and being more accessible, which I think is something that is always increasing as a demand from our consumers. But we still, of course, wanted to amplify the core that we have, IKEA store and online channel. So this was a way of complementing it, and also a way to explain what the IKEA store and online could has as a contribution. And of course, we wanted to increase the sales through assisted purchase, because we know that this is complex ranges needs further assistance, and then it's harder to do it online. But we also wanted to be more accessible than having consumers needing to go a further distance to the store. And the prerequisite that we have set for this format was that we should be located in shopping centers or in high traffic shopping areas where we had market potential, but also saw that we got feedback from consumers about the accessibility and wanting to get closer to IKEA. The commercial space was a lot smaller than the store. We had a range from 30 to 75 square meters. And as I said, it should be low-cost implementation based on modules that was set out in the area. Not that high level of range presentation, but still showing our IKEA range. It should be a flexibility to test and try, to open up fast, but also close fast if we didn't saw that the unit or format was appreciated from the consumers. So the maximum test period was 18 months together with our franchisee owner. And the home service point didn't include or offer any food component, takeaway products, or pickup components or returns at site. But we still needed, for example, to have pickup possibilities in the close by area. So this was another type of format, not offering the total range or offers and services that we have in the store, but focusing on complementing the store and helping consumers to both plan and order our complex range and getting to know IKEA. And in general, the role was for the home service point to, as I have said, create accessibility in non-penetrated areas where we know and have heard that people want to get close to IKEA. We wanted to support customers in a convenient and accessible way to design, plan, and buy home furnishing solutions, since it is a big journey when consumers want to plan and order, for example, a kitchen, and then it should be convenient, but you should also be able to do it in accessible way and be able to, for example, meet your seller that you already have had, and also have flexible options on the shopping journey. We wanted the home service point to be a complement and still drive traffic to the store, because we didn't offer the full IKEA offer. So we still saw that we could drive traffic to our store as well as online. And it's also a way, as Ulf were into, to reinforce the IKEA brand position in areas where we don't have a store, so that people can come closer to our brand and what we are standing for, and that we by that can build relationships and trust. And of course, when opening up this kind of format and when we show our range, we want to inspire and show our home furnishing expertise to the many Swedes, but also in other Ingka countries, and show that we can help them to create a better life at home with our expertise. And this was and should be a flexible and smart business opportunity that we also could continue to use as a long-term investment, but also short-term depending on markets, because we also needed to get to know different areas where we weren't present. So it was a learning from different angles. And we put up the objectives, and they were mainly focusing on the accessibility and the increase of penetration, that we should support customers, that we should be present outside the PMA, and also make a standpoint for consumers in affordability and sustainability, even more that we could do only when we were present with a store. And this should be we saw that this could be done in a faster way in specific range areas than just having the stores. And our key success factors for this format was that we needed to have high and competent co-workers, since the format were focusing on complex range such as kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, etc. We saw that the competence is the main priority to focus on, but also contribute with, since that is why the consumer should want to visit us, because they can't to same extent shop a kitchen such as home furnishing accessories. The right location is or was and is still a very important factor when it comes to success. And that is something that we really look into before we are opening up a format or a CNP still today. And we also saw that we needed to have possibility to open up new CNPs with lower investments comparing to our stores, because it gives us, or should give us, profitability and flexibility. We also saw that with these smaller formats and with the right rental agreements, we could be more flexible and open up, but also, if that was needed, close, and maybe during the period find another location which was more suitable. We also saw that since we didn't have the IKEA store with our total stock and our with our warehouse, etc., as we have in the store, we needed to give the consumers where we had a home service point a possibility to pick up their products nearby, so that we didn't needed to force them to go to the IKEA store to collect their products, since that was often in another city. And going into an evaluation that we did 1.5 years ago, if I talk about the consumer insights, what we saw, as also Ulf was into, when we are looking into the performance and the contribution of smaller formats, we can't only look into the financial perspective. We need to have different perspectives that is contributing, not just because of that it is challenging to look into the financial evaluation, but also because of that we see that our CMPs can contribute in different ways to a holistic approach. But of course, one part was the challenging part when it comes to follow up the financials. But also, as we said, we see that the CMPs can contribute in different ways, but still being very important in the totality of our offer in a market. For starting with the customer perspective, we saw that in general, our customer tool, you could say, that we are working with is called ISA, and the overall results we got from the home service points units were slightly higher and better than in the store, in the physical stores. And the biggest driver from the customer feedback we got was that we had a high staff friendliness, and the staff were very competent. They liked the unit's atmosphere, and we also managed to offer a high level of inspiration. What was more seen as a dissatisfaction was the staff attitude, and this is of course something that always can come up. Now someone raised its hand, but maybe I should wait with that to afterwards. Yes. We also saw that one feedback could be that no staff was available, and that could happen, for example, because in these units, we didn't have that many co-workers. In general, 2 to 3 working at the same time. But we also saw that it wasn't those hectic situations all the times as in the stores. So in general, the staff working there had more time to actually focus on their visitors and also their customers. One thing that also we were into a little bit before was the products in stock, because we saw that when we are getting closer to consumers in new areas, they also have a perception of what they originally think that IKEA will offer. So people that were visiting these smaller home service points, some of them were disappointed because they thought that they could shop products there, but they couldn't. And then also we got the feedback, for example, no relevant products for me. So that is something that we couldn't offer, but that wasn't either the purpose. So here it's important for, as a retailer, to communicate in a clear way what is the purpose of this unit or format, so that we have the same expectation and the consumers as fast as possible understand what you could expect from a retailer when you are present. And when it comes to happy customer score, which is a customer insight also, we saw that markets with these home service points had a slightly better happy customer score than markets without home service points. And that was also something that were challenging, because not all our measurement tools have the possibility to dig into specific units. So we also needed to stay on a store level, which can make it a little bit challenging to understand, is it the store or is it the smaller unit that is contributing here? And if we look into the customer journey, we have put out the feedback from our customers from these first home service points throughout the customer journey. Where we work with different stages. We have the recognizing phase, we have the exploring, we have the choosing, we have the committing, integrating, and living with IKEA. And here we saw that we could see both positive and also constructive feedback that is suitable for different phases. So, for example, when it comes to when consumers are exploring or choosing, we saw that the convenience part was a factor that we were driving. They were happy that it was more convenient to visit IKEA when they were exploring and choosing. They didn't need to go to the blue box. It was closer to home, and no need to travel. to get this personal assistant as you often need when you should buy, for example, a kitchen, bathroom, etc. But they could also actually get help with smaller issues instead of calling or going to the IKEA store. And also book time to support the purchase. Not everyone wants to book or ask questions online or a phone. Some of the consumers still wanted to go to a unit and book the time to the future appointment. What we saw as more constructive feedback, as I were into a little bit, they had expectation that they should see more range, and especially more range of the, for example, kitchen range that we offered, which is often seen in IKEA stores where we have the full offer and many different room sets, and also many different, for example, countertops example, etc. You can go to different rooms and test and try yourself. And as I said a little bit before too, they had a request of small items, but also gift cards, and they couldn't then directly buy them. And that is something that is many people are thinking that you should and could be able to do when you meet IKEA in different cities. When it comes to the committing and integrating part, it's when you commit to a purchase and actually integrate it in your life and get the deliveries, etc. There we saw that the staff availability, the competence and friendliness was a driving factor. And also the calm environment with professional personal service, because these units were smaller, so not that high visitation as we have to the stores. So it was also easier to focus and also for the visitors to be seen and really relax. And also, as I were into the pickup point possibilities, some of them thought that the pickup point should be closer located to the unit than it was in some cities. And some conclusions that we had from this evaluation, we saw that different brand KPIs had a positive development, where we actually could look into different cities and separate it from the mother store, so that we could see that these brand KPIs have a positive development in this specific city where we have these home service points. And the same goes for the penetration, where we saw a slightly higher positive development comparing to other cities that didn't open up home service point. And as I said, the customer perspective had a good result. The financial KPIs is still something that is challenging to evaluate, because you could see it from different perspectives. And since we are working with different units and not just one store in one market, it is harder to understand what is contributing to what. And that is something that we are continuously working on to set up tools to understand the financial impact. But we also understand that we need to always look into different perspectives, the brand, the customer, the service office, etc., to see the total picture, because all the formats and the CMPs we have also have different purposes. So we don't have the same expectations on all the formats that we have. So a mix that is suitable for each market is the thing that we are looking for. And the main reasons for this conclusion was that we think that we could have a higher result in, for example, sales, but also in penetration and a happy customer score, if we would have been managed to be more clear in what the purpose of the home service point was when we were opening up in a city. It takes a time when you open up a format to get the consumers and visitors understand what is the purpose, but also for the consumers living in a city where we are opening up to just know that IKEA is there, where we need marketing, etc. So the reach part is something that is taking a little bit longer when you are opening up in a new city where you haven't been present before. And of course, also the solution offered that I were into. Sometimes the smaller unit was a little bit too small when we had, for example, campaigns, etc., focusing on kitchen, and then we maybe would have needed some more planning desk and so on. We also saw that these home service points were mainly focusing on the business to consumer part when we were rolling out this first home service point. But we see that we have a large business to business potential also, which these smaller formats also can contribute to, and where we can invite business to business customer also. So that is something that we have worked upon the last 1.5 years. So not just focusing on private customers when it comes to these smaller formats, but also the business to business customers, since they also have increased demands. And when it comes to the fulfillment of the objectives, we see that and have stated that we have become more accessible and increased our penetration, though, as I said, we think that we need to be more and communicate more about the purpose, and also that we are present, because even 1.5 years ago, and when we have been open for a year, we saw that people still in smaller cities didn't know that we were there. We see that we have managed to support customers in designing, planning, and buying home furnishing solutions in this complex range area through the positive feedback that we got, but also through a good financial performance. And that we have managed to be present outside the PMA in areas that we weren't present before, where consumers can start to connect with IKEA. And also, when it comes to make a standpoint in affordability, that is something that is harder to evaluate, and where we need to further develop tools, etc., but also set up requirements of how that could be evaluated. And when it comes to the key success factors, as I presented in the beginning, which we were setting up before we were rolling out this home service point, we saw that we have managed to have high competent co-workers. The right location is the starting point for success. And out of 6 home service points from the beginning, we were satisfied with almost everyone, but still needed to, for example, maybe adjust some of the size when it comes to location in one shopping center, etc., because it could be small adjustments that could be better, being in a corner or being close to the entrance, etc. The right location is really something that is a key, and something that you could also be flexible with. The low investments were something that we were delivering onto. We were not investing more than the budget, etc., and comparing to opening up a store is a huge difference, and also the speed part. And of course, the right rental agreements gives us flexibility, which we actually managed to have good. Though when it comes to the pickup points, we had some opportunities to improve them when it comes to also showing and setting the IKEA brand in the best possible way. And after we opened up the home service points in 2021, we saw that now we have done the test, and we have gotten closer to the 18 months that were the test period together with the franchisee owner. So then we needed to start to look into, okay, do we want to conceptualize this format, and do we want it to become a part of our IKEA CMP menu? So then we started that transformation journey, and that was also why we needed to do a larger evaluation of these home service points from different angles to understand where do we want to stay, where do we maybe want to move, where do we want to open up another unit, etc. So that we had conceptualized plan and order points where we wanted them to be based on the customer and what they have thought about our openings. And when it comes to the plan and order points, why we wanted to conceptualize it was that we already had the plan and order point in our format, but now we saw that we could widen the plan and order format with different sizes, depending on what is suitable for each market. So then we added the plan and order point extra small into the plan and order point menu. So this plan and order point extra small is one part and something that has come from the home service point test, where we see that we can work with small units with different sizes, depending on how big, for example, a city is, how much potential we have, how much inspiration we think that we need to show, and so on. That is impacting the size that we are seeking. And also the commercial priorities that we have throughout the years. And if we also thought that if we gather all the sizes and have one name that is plan and order point, it gives us speed and a possibility to follow up, because then we have one name but with different sizes, and we can have scalable advantages and also follow up and compare in between countries, for example, than having different types of too many formats with different purposes. So it was to have a more wider agenda, but still having a format that is focusing on the same purpose, but depending on how big it was or how big it needed to be. And that is also something that is easier for each country to work with when they should go out and look for available sites. Then they know that we need to look for the same basic prerequisites, but it could be that we need to look into different sizes, but still needing to look for the same basic prerequisites. So that was something that should be able and enable the countries from the franchisee owner, but also Ingka Global. And why we wanted to go from the home service point test to the plan and order point extra small was that I started to go into the full scalability and flexibility between all the sizes. It should also be that if you, for example, had opened up a plan and order point in one city, then you should have the possibility to grow, for example, in the same city and not need to adjust that much. And we did want to have a conceptualized format. We can't test forever. We need to start to have it in our CMP menu to also develop, for example, evaluation methods, etc., better. And we still wanted to be more accessible in the non-penetrated areas and reinforce the brand position, as I also talked about when it came to the home service point. We still saw that we wanted to support in planning and buying home furnishing solutions, enabled also by the online channel. And it should be flexible and a smart business opportunity, both for the business to consumers, but also business to business. It should be a small add-on format that is driving and supporting traffic to the store and online. And also that we should be able to scale and compare different cities, how they're performing, but also in between countries. And what is the basic prerequisites then for our plan and order points that we have today, which you can find in different sizes depending on where you are? They have a high share of kitchen sales and kitchen, but also wardrobes. And kitchen is our most important business, and it's also something that is needed very much support in. So a high focus in the plan and order point is kitchen and showing the range there. We also gave the markets the possibility to locally adapt some of the solutions, which is important to do because not all consumers in different markets want or need the same. So it is important to give the market managers and the team opportunity to adapt to trends, etc., and people living in each market and show solutions for them and not just general solution, for example, throughout Sweden always. If you remember the home service point were in between 30 to 75, here we had increased it a little bit. And the range you could also choose in between there. We still wanted to be in shopping centers, but it could also be standalone, but the high visibility is important still. And we are only having a plan order point that is located in one level. And we need to have a fulfillment network in the markets where we want to have a plan and order point to secure fast deliveries, but also securing a profitability for us. We need to have a high level of competence and to be fully ready when opening. And that is something that needs to be planned for, because planning kitchen and wardrobes is taking longer to learn than selling, for example, home furnishing accessory. Also, we don't want it to be no longer than 1.5 hours in general from the Matrix stores. It will lead to high cost, but also, for example, that co-workers are not feel that they belong to the mother store, and we have co-workers workers in different units. So it's important to still not have too long distance to the store to keep up and share competence in between, but also feeling this belongingness. And this is how our plan and order point looks like. You could maybe, if you visit some of the plan and order points, see some adjustments and local adjustments, but we still have the kitchen and wardrobe and bathroom range as a focus. And the plan and order point actually shows more inspiration than the home service point, which had a more open area with a little bit maybe vague components. And here we really try to more focus on the inspiration of the different ranges and have clear components so that consumers understood where to go to plan, where to go when you want to look into the range, etc. And also as something that Ulf were into, a challenging thing, but still very interesting, and something that is important to understand is the way each unit and each format are contributing to a total market, to a total country. And we have earlier built many stores, but we now see that we need to be present in many different ways. And we have markets, for example, that is having one store, maybe 2 plan and order points also. And it could also be that we also have a small store, extra small store in Stockholm, for example. And then we need to see and understand that the different formats have different purposes. And on top of that, we also have services and fulfillment opportunities, but we also have digital solutions. And all these aspects have different purposes for the total market's contribution and for the customer experience. So we need to look into it more as an omni-channel ecosystem now and going forward. When we are developing markets going further, we can't just focus on the store and the contribution there. We need to look into the total market and what is needed in one market as a totality. And that mix could look different and is looking different depending on what market you are in, if you are in Stockholm market or if you are in Helsingborg, for example. And we had our stores before. We had one store in each market, you could say, where we were present. But today it could look like this. We could have stores, it could be a pop-up, it could be a fulfillment center, and the other one could be a plan and order points. And the aim is to have a mix that is based on what the customer wants and need, so that we should meet that. And what we are doing now, we have developed the plan and order point format fully, you could say. We are still doing adjustments and trying to be better, of course, but we have set that format and clearly shown what is the prerequisites and requirements and what different opportunities markets have. Now we are more looking into the small stores and how we can develop them going further. As Ulf mentioned, we have opened an extra small store in Gallerian, and in the IKEA world outside in the countries, we also have other extra small stores, of course. But here we also see that we need to continue to develop these to get the right mix and also secure full scalability and comparison in between the countries, so that we are having the same prerequisites and also requirements, so that consumers can meet IKEA in a kind of similar way, so that it not gets confusing. So when it comes to these a little bit larger formats, more also focusing on the home furnishing accessory and the complex range as the plan and order point, we need to develop these going further, which we are on to. We haven't worked with these that long. So that is also why you maybe haven't seen many of these extra small stores yet. But beside these physical CMPs, we also always consider, for example, the IKEA web, so our social media channel, our IKEA app, our IKEA remote customer meeting point, which is the old call center, you could say, when you need to or want to chat or call in and buy a kitchen. And now also, for example, like our IKEA pickup lockers. So there are many opportunities for a market to look into and understand what is the perfect mix for us today, but also continuously evaluate, am I having the right mix, or have the consumer behavior and preferences changed, and how will it probably change in the future? So you will never get done. It is always evolving. And here we have tried and started to look into what are the factors we need to have with us when we are evaluating a market and how it is performant. We need to, for example, look into what is the social media reach, what is the PR effect, what is the brand value, how is it going with the cannibalization effect, and what is the best way to actually measure the cannibalization. How many new customers are we reaching and not old customers? And are we reaching the ones that we have said that we want to focus on? And are we actually reaching the many which we are standing for? How is the total market looking? And how are the different units looking? And does it matter? Or is it the total market that should deliver? And how are we looking when it comes to the online impact, and how important is that for one market, and why is that different looking in different parts of the city? And also the uniqueness of visitors, which is an impact. So all these aspects is important and something that we need to navigate in when evaluating a physical customer meeting point, but also a total market. And this is not a finalized model or something, but we have started to understand that we need to develop and discuss around different effects to actually evaluate a market in a realistic and feasible way. And what we then will receive or is trying to achieve is a halo model to capture information from both the brand, sales, customer, operational results, etc. To measure the real and full value we create for our customer journey and throughout different steps. And that we will benefit from through creating strong ways to define and measure the true role and the purpose of each meeting and an interaction point. And what we also need to consider before we are planning new CMPs, and what we always is considering before opening up a new plan and order point. We look into the market size growth and the sales potential, both now, history, but also what we see could be reasonable for the future. What is the sales potential looking in different ranges? Home furnishing accessory versus furniture. What consumer groups are living in the area, and what have we already gotten as brand measurement and customer feedback? So all these questions and many other, of course, are impacting the choice of format. Because we can't just look into one aspect, we need to understand it from different perspective, and then also be open to change along the way. So that is something that we are trying to work upon, and we need to focus on going forward. Always be flexible and have more flexible formats, but also change and adapt to customer behavior in a fast way. And going forward, our aim is to offer one IKEA experience that should be seamless no matter where you meet IKEA. We want to become even more accessible. We are not full. We haven't reached any full potential there, and we always think that we can improve there. Both with our range and service offer at an affordable price, which is something that is very important for us to offer. And we want to open new IKEA customer meeting points in city and urban, suburban areas to always connect with consumers where they want to meet us. Our existing stores will still continue to be an essential part of our business, where you actually can experience the full range and our offer. And it should be the peak experience when you visit a store, because you can't experience the full range in our other formats. So there, our IKEA stores is still going to play a vital role for us going forward. But maybe we will also have other functions that is happening in our IKEA stores. We always now also look into what role has each market. What should, for example, Stockholm contribute to? What should Helsingborg contribute to? And each unit within each market to get the perfect mix of retail formats. And when we want to do things differently and develop formats, etc., we always have the possibility to collect input from the markets and also give it to our franchisee owner. And that is something that we are doing more and more today going forward, actually developing the new formats together with the franchisee owner, which we see is much better because we then get results faster, but also we have the more and same expectation on the formats. Talking about the existing formats, there we also see that we need to develop the existing formats and work with maybe different components depending on how big a market is. So even if we have, for example, like IKEA store today, and it has looked very much the same for many years, we also need to develop the IKEA store and these components going forward to be relevant and have consumers that are enjoying the IKEA store and also that we need to take our responsibility to actively manage our existing assets for the future. So we are going to focus a lot on profitable and scaling meeting points, both the physical and digital perspective, still having a total market approach. And we are on a journey to develop our new customer meeting point menu that is simple for markets to use and understand, but also, most importantly, for our customers to understand, so that you know where to go, where, and why. And we see that our CMP should be able to work together in a good way in a market. And our goal is to conclude to have different profitable and scalable formats across our markets, depending on where we are present or will be present. And in the future, and where we are now, IKEA is a company that is seen as a sustainable and innovative, attractive employer. We are a market leader within home furnishing, both in value and in people's minds, where we have a high top of mind awareness. And many Swedes trust and love the IKEA brand, but this is something that we always need to work upon, because we have a high competition in Sweden, but also in other markets. And as consumer and customer behaviors are changing, we always need to adapt and develop our offer. As I said, we need to, for example, develop our stores and what their role should be in the future. And we need to continuously develop our CMP formats to have formats that are relevant and in different markets, which could be very different if you are in different parts of Sweden, but also in different countries. Yes. So what we want to do in the future is to co-create and involve more of our consumers, and also listen to the real needs of people, which we are doing through, for example, home visits, but also gathering and collecting data in our customer meeting points. But this is something that we really see is going to support us in the future to have a fast development of improvements. We want to broaden and grow our customer base, and that is in our DNA because we want to be relevant for the many people. So that is a really high focus area for us, where we see that we have potential today. For example, we see that we need to have an extra focus on the new Sweden, but also general set, which maybe not always think that we are relevant and accessible. We also need to focus on people with a thinner wallet. Today we face economic challenges and have done for a couple of years. So here we always need to make sure that we are for the many and not just saying that we are it. And that was everything that I had for today, talking a little bit about our home service point development and the development from the home service point test to the plan and order point, but also a little bit about the future of IKEA and how we think that we need to think when we are looking into market and the development. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Zarah. Very interesting to get the inside perspective of how a big company like you develop new things, the whole process of it. Before I ask if there are any questions, I want to exemplify one of these things that we have encountered looking at the small stores. I remember in Hammersmith, some of the customers were very confused about what could actually be gotten at the store. They got confused because some bigger items were available to carry home, but they were very difficult to carry home. And some other things that were quite small and handy, they were not available in the store. So, but I think that's maybe an illustration of what you meant. You need to work on the format. You need to adjust and learn from customer experience, because it's one thing to plan things. The other thing is when you let customers into it. I don't know if you agree, but
Of course. And that could also be very different because, for example, one range could be something that is very relevant for one market, and then we open up in another market and we have biases, and then we need to adjust because we thought wrong and need to adjust the range, or it could be because of trends, etc. So yeah, it's a lot of not just about the format, it's also about the components and the offer inside the format.
Thank you very much, Zarah. Can I ask if there are any questions to me or to Zarah? Have you seen any questions, Caris? I haven't seen any ones in the chat.
No, there's nothing in the chat just yet, but I have just let people know that they can ask questions in the chat, or they can also raise a hand and turn on their microphone if they want to ask them in person. So please don't be shy.
While we don't have that, I'll ask you a couple of other questions. I think there were some of the things that I recognized when you talked about PMA, which is primary market area. Have you done any trials with like the Moscow in Russia, where they looked at the whole region of Moscow? I mean, Stockholm is I guess one place that could be a place where you do evaluation on a different level than units.
Yeah, we for example both work with Stockholm as even if we have different PMAs as we call it in Stockholm, we still also look into the Stockholm total market area. And that is something that we maybe will do in the other larger cities in Sweden. But otherwise, Sweden is a quite small country. So comparing to Russia or the US, we can't do that approach on all the markets. But what we do today comparing to before is that we are having larger PMAs. So for example, in Helsingborg, that responsibility area they have today is larger than before. Because we don't have that white areas as we had before. So each market and each store is having a larger responsibility, you could say, to be able to also actively work with the area that they have a customer visit them from. Before, that area wasn't that big, but now we have given the responsibility and also thereby the performance and financials and so on. So that markets can really work with their local market.
Thank you.
We have one raised hand here now with a question. Manos, do you want to turn on your mic and ask your question?
Thank you so much. So, well, regarding the different types of formats that you talked about, that IKEA is trying to create and to somehow change the way it is perceived by the customers. Given that in some markets, as you said, the IKEA brand is a franchise, is there, let's say, a system that you somehow monitor the way they do it, or you just provide the guidelines for them and then let them try and localize this strategy?
We have, for example, our IKEA concept, which our franchisee is owning, and that is something that we need to follow for each unit that is conceptualized. So, for example, we have different aspects of our IKEA concept that is needed to be fulfilled for one format. So, for example, for our IKEA store, we have many requirements, you could say, that we need to fulfill and are being evaluated based on, and which we need to fulfill to be able to implement new projects, get investments, etc. That is something that the market needs to do before doing something else. But for the smaller formats, those requirements are often less but you still have always basic aspects that you need to fulfill. So you can't go totally outside the box. But for example, for this plan and order point format, that is more flexible than the test home service point. We say, for example, that you need to offer kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom range, but you can do local adaptation based on what kind of kitchen fronts or what sofa you're offering or showing inside. But you need to have, for example, a certain amount of, or you need to have the components, you need to have a planning area, you need to have a choose your style, which we are calling it. But you can do local adjustments based on the range you show. Was that clear or an answer?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank
Just
you.
adding to that, Sarah, we've looked. I mean, we worked mainly with Ingka as the franchise holder, but we also interviewed a number of other franchisees. And my interpretation of the talks with them is that there is some room for adjustment, because for instance, some of the franchisees in Asia, they have a hard time not selling anything from a plan and order point. They want something sold from the plan and order point. So I guess there is some room for something, at least in the conceptualization.
Exactly.
Thank you.
No other questions in the chat at the moment.
Let me then pick my mind. One of the things that we and I think I touched a little bit on that one, was that there is different theories on what is a good location, for instance, for a plan and order point. Tottenham Court Road was not a good place to put it in. They also had in the UK, they also had in southern England somewhere another plan and order point. So what's the theory in Sweden when it comes to plan and order points, Sarah? Where do we put them, on the big shopping streets or somewhere else?
Yeah, that can differ, for example, but in general, we want to be in a vibrant and busy area in a city. And that busy and vibrant area can look different in different cities. It could be in a city center, but it could also be that it is the shopping mall in a city. But we want to be around a home furnishing cluster where consumers are, for example, seeking for home furnishing, which is a natural part of being present of them. But we also see that, for example, a plan and order point is maybe something that is more suitable to have when you have a little bit longer distance to the store. Because otherwise you will be able to go to the store where you can access the full range and home furnishing inspiration of a kitchen, for example. So it can't be like too close to the store. And you need to see that, for example, we have a potential to sell more and reach more consumer when it comes to kitchen or bathroom and so on, since that is something we are not offering cash and carry products there to the same extent. Maybe we offer some cash and carry products in some units, but in general, just planning and ordering there. So it's actually a very specific focus area. So there you need to know that we have a potential to sell more in. And what was the other part? Yeah, home furnishing cluster, I said, and not too close to the mother store and in a vibrant area. Yeah,
So it is
I think those are the ones that are most important.
It is shopping areas where people go to shop.
Yeah. But then that can be, of
looking
course,
for home furnishing stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because that is also a part of being convenient. People today don't want to, in general, I should say, go to 10 different places in a city. We have a high demand. I can only look to myself. When I go and shop, it is more convenient for me to go to one area where I also can compare and look into different things than needing to go to 10 different places.
Okay.
We also see, for example, when it comes to that, retailing is not competing just only in between retailers. We are competing with people's time when it comes to other activities at the spare time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Zarah, if that's okay. A lot of my research has been about customer journeys and how, you know, these kind of unfold, these different stages that people go through, which stores they go to first or which touch points they engage with the retailer through. And traditionally, IKEA has obviously been extremely good at providing a very, very clear and controlled customer journey for people. I mean, you control exactly where they walk in the store. It's down to that level. These new formats clearly offer a much more diffuse and diverse set of customer journeys for people. And I wonder, how does that impact how you work as a business, kind of internally? How do people who have for a long time focused on having a very controlled customer journey and everything that goes with that transform into managing this very diffuse and diverse set of journeys?
Yeah, I think that is something that we are still learning. For example, this extra small store, and we have planned, for example, for a customer journey and how the layout should look like based on our IKEA experience and what we know about how consumers are moving, etc. But then it's clear that it is different, and we need to still learn when we are opening up a new CMP format, because it's one thing to plan a layout with the same flows, etc., but in a smaller size, and we can't maybe have exactly the same flow. But also the thing that when we are opening up these smaller formats, we are not doing it in our buildings. We are renting a space in another building in general, and then we need to adapt our format into an external premises, and that can be something that is challenging, where we need to adapt our concept to a site that is already existing. So that is sometimes challenging for us, where we have potentials and need to then also be able to develop the format. So there is a huge journey when it comes to actually adapting these smaller formats to different sites and different markets, and also gathering a lot customer experience to see whether they think that they understand where to go, what their expectations are, and so on. And that we could see, for example, in Stockholm also. We have gathered a lot of information about the layout there and how people are understanding or not where to go, but also about the range, increased the amount of articles, because we see that people are expecting and want to have more articles than we had from the beginning, and also a wider range of some of our different sales areas. So we're learning a lot, and also work together, for example, with Ingka Global to understand learnings from other countries and best practices and so on. And internally, I would say that then it's more that we need to work with smaller organization setups and multi-skilled co-workers. And that was a journey also we started on before or during COVID, when we needed to be more flexible in the store, and based on the visitation and work environment, be able to work on different departments. So that is something that we perceive ourselves to be good at, but that is something that is taking longer to actually manage before you open up this kind of CMP. So before opening, you still need to really prepare the organization since it's smaller and you need to do more of the different things than in a store.
Yeah, so it sounds like a much more kind of dialectical or conversational process with consumers and with co-workers than perhaps it was in the past.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe
Ulf, there
time
are
to
no more
close down,
questions.
Carrie.
Yeah, so I wonder if we should wrap up.
Yeah. Let's do that. Thank you very much, Sarah, for participating and showing us the process of a big retailer when it comes to developing these formats. It was really interesting to listen to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for
yeah.
having me.
Thank you, participants. Wishing you all a good summer, I think. Carrie, we have something else on in a couple of weeks' time or next week.
Yeah, we have a small lunch seminar with John Olsson next week, which is about kind of fossil-free deliveries and how that is playing out. That's on Monday. And then the week after, on the 12th, we have the launch of our report, latest report about shopper marketing. So you should
That's right.
getting invites for all of that in your inbox very soon.
So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. And bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.